for attending, and we're going to talk today about cores. So just a little bit of background. The division that we have that utilizes cores, we have two of them, Mid-South and Mid-America, and we utilize cores in the automotive world. So when you buy a battery, you are charged a core charge. When you take your old battery back, you get that core charge back. So the cool thing is you get it like a deposit. So if you've got products where you have a deposit and you give that customer back their deposit, you could utilize a core charge. Cores do all sorts of things. They do all sorts of stuff on the back end side in the accounting, and they are automatic, kind of what I call an automated system. So what I thought I would do is I'm going to show you just the basic setup. I'll show you how to sell a core, how to return a dirty core, and then we'll talk about some of the pain points, because we've encountered some real pain points, and that's one of the reasons for this webinar, was to see what other pain points are out there. And then I want to show you an option that I've kind of designed, and I've been working with my SI guy to see if we can create this modification to take some of the pain away from the dirty core return side. So let's start with the setup. So the very first thing is we're going to create what's called a reman item. Now you have to remember, I can only type based upon how many people are watching me type. So in ICSP, this is at the product level, we've got the core screen. And by selecting a product type of remanufactured, because remember, everything else is going to start out as a standard product, we would select a remanufactured. It's going to, we then assign it the implied core and the dirty core. So the implied core is when I sell this item, this is that core charge. When I buy the item, it automatically puts in that core charge. That's my implied core. The dirty core is what I get back. So when the customer brings back the old battery, I'm going to give them credit for the dirty core. When I send this to the vendor, I give them credit for the dirty, I get credit for the dirty core. And then I have the ability to set up grace periods. So I can say it's 12 months, it's good for a year. For the customer, it's 12 days or months. I have that option here. So this is the very first step. Then each of these items has to become a product. So my dirty core is a regular standard item. My implied core, please note, is a labor item. This causes a few issues, but it is a labor item. Now, in the system, and actually, when we utilize, in the majority of products, when we utilize a labor item, it posts to a separate GL, and we have all sorts of different things. Cores are a little bit different. So cores, the ICR, your trial balance, so your ICR TT will include implied cores. Where it does not normally include labor items, it will include implied cores. So just keep that in mind. So once you set all of these up, including all of your ICSW records, you have the ability to go in and sell this item. So if I go into a customer, I'm going to sell this item eventually. It will automatically add that implied core. So my implied core has a cost of $15. The system assumes, when you look at availability, the system assumes that you have, in this case, 37 implied cores. it will always take your on-hand, the on-hand quantity of your reman item, and assume that you have that same amount of implied cores. And that's what you'll see on that trial balance. That's how it comes up with the value of your implied cores. It takes the $15, which is my cost of the implied core, times 37. Because you'll notice, remember, with labor items, there is no quantity on hand. So on the order entry side, it's real nice and real simple. All of this is automated, so that implied core comes in. The same thing on the purchasing side. When you buy that reman item, it automatically adds the same number of implied cores. The other piece that you have to remember is how we handle the general ledger side. So, whoops, sorry. I'm a little mouse happy today. So on the GL side, you have a number of GL defaults for cores. Now we set them up at the R&D level so that it's every product category uses the same GL, but you can set a lot of these up at the category level as well. But remember, you're going to have to set these up or it's going to post the suspense. So cores is fairly automated, and the good thing is it's all pretty automated. The problem comes on the dirty core side. So remember, on the sales side of it, nice and easy. On the dirty core side, they're going to bring back that battery. And so on a return merchandise, I'm going to select my return, my dirty core return. I'm going to put in the dirty core number, which is really just, we set ours up so that it takes the product number and it just appends the letters DC to the end so that I know it's a dirty core. It shows me down here that it's a dirty core. The guy is returning 2 of them. It's going to ask me what I'm doing. I'm doing a core return or a substitute or a core buy, which we don't really use the substitutes. Ours is either a core return or a core buy. A core buy says that they didn't buy the original battery from me, but they're returning a dirty core. So I'm going to buy that dirty core from them because they didn't actually buy it from me. So this case, the core return, I have to allocate this to each invoice. And here is one of the pain points. If they return 3, I would have to put it on 3 lines. So if you'll notice back here, I put in a quantity of 2. I can only allocate 1 at a time. I can't allocate 2. I get this error. So that means that everything has to be on 1 line. So I have to change my quantity. Say this is a core return. And then I have to put this item back in again. Say it's a core return and allocate it to the next. So then what happens is for every dirty core that the customer gives me back, I end up with a line on the return. On the purchase order side, when I order the item, it will automatically add that implied core. So now I have a pallet of implied core or dirty cores that I need to send back to this vendor. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do a return merchandise. dirty core returned. I'm going to put in that item, my dirty core. And now what it's going to do is on the purchasing side, got all these invalid dates, sorry, is it gives me every purchase order that I ordered that product on and allows me to allocate based upon the quantity on that order. So in this case, it's perfect. I've got the 50, and I can take it right from this purchase order. Just double click on it. And I got these invalid dates. Sorry, this is my test database, and some of my dates are invalid. But my problem comes in if I've got a whole slew of cores. Now I can't allocate because I've got more than what I had sold. So let's say this was the PO, the only PO that's out there. I could only allocate 66. So it comes down to, because of the core bank is very detailed, it is by transaction, I'm limited as to what I can do. So let me show you. We've got an inventory control. In your inquiry screen, you have a core inquiry. And so you can look at what you've got in your core bank. You have a master to this where you could make a change if you needed to, change a quantity. You'll have to make your posting to the GL side. But we do have, there are a number of reports, and there is the inquiry, and then the entry to the core master and core allocation. And then you've got a couple of, of core reports. And then the core reports will tell you what cores, what you have in stock. And so when I look at this, I look at, because I'm generally looking to see what balances I have, I'm looking at my core analysis or my product totals report. And then the customer and vendor report allow you to look at what this customer has in their bank, or the vendor side allows you to see what you have in your bank for that vendor. So I know this was kind of quick. So the very first step is the ICSP. You're going to set up your product. ICSW, you're going to set up per warehouse. I have a lot of items out here in this product. So when I look at this item for this warehouse, I'm going to see those 3 items. So I'm going to see my reman item, there's my implied core, and there is my dirty core. At the warehouse level, you're going to assign it price and cost, just like a normal product. Specify your authorized replenishment path, just like a regular item. Same thing with your dirty core. Give them, this is the credit you get back. And then on the order entry side, when you sell that reman item, when you sell the battery, the implied core automatically is charged to the customer. When they return that the old battery back, or the dirty core back, you give them credit for the dirty core. On the purchasing side, when you buy that implied core, or the reman item, the battery, the implied core is automatically added, that cost. And when you return the dirty core, you'll get credit back for the dirty core. So I see John has a question. He's got his hand raised.
Yeah, hang tight. All right. Okay. John, you should be unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question. John, I'm getting a lot of background noise, but I'm not hearing anything. John, it doesn't sound like we're getting through. So please type your question in, and we'll continue on. Sorry about that, Della.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Okay, so on the purchasing side, we get the credit back from the vendor for the dirty core. So here's the issue that I have, is in the world of order entry and the world of, let's say, take the guys at the counter. So customer walks in, he's buying throughout the week, he buys one battery at a time. And then on Friday, he brings all of the old batteries, the dirty cores back. So now I have an order. He's got 10 different batteries on it. I have an order, a credit, for 10 different dirty cores. Even though it's the same exact battery, I have to add it to the order 10 times. On the purchasing side, there are some vendors where I get a better price if I give them the dirty core, if I return it to a different vendor than who I bought it from. And I can't do that without creating a dummy purchase order, putting that into, so that I can allocate, putting it into SX.e, creating that PO in SX.e, and then allocating the PO return of those dirty cores back to that dummy vendor. So in the world of a core bank, you can only take the dirty core back from the customer that bought, or you can only return the dirty core to the vendor that you bought it without going through a lot of processes. On the customer side, you can only do one line at a time. So if they bought one battery each day of the week, and then they return 5 batteries on Friday, it's 5 lines on the return. It's never just 5, it's usually 10 or 20, never fails. On the purchasing side, it's the same thing. You can only return that dirty core one at a time. You have to allocate it back because the core bank is by transaction. So one of the things that I am proposing is the ability to have all of that automated, to put in one line on the order and say, I want this to automatically allocate it back to all of the non-expired cores on the customer side and on the vendor side. So, Denise is asking, can you return the dirty core at the time of purchase? The purchase, the dirty core has to be on a return merchandise PO. I have actually never, because you can't do POs work a little bit different than orders. You have, any kind of return has to be done on a PORM, and you have to have because you have to have the same unavailable reason. You have to have the same return reason. Oh, on the customer level, you absolutely can. So on a customer level, so let's say I am on a regular stock order. So I have, so there, the guys bought the new battery, and because he took it out of his car, he brought in the dirty battery. So on that same order, I can put the dirty core, say it's a core return, and allocate it back against the order. Now, if he had not bought the battery from us, so let's see. So this case, this core, and he did do the core buy. Let's say that he did not buy it we're going to do it as a core by, then it brings up just as though it were regular return. So I would say this is a dirty core return and just enter it as a credit. So yes, you can. And so in the proposal, what I'm asking is I'm asking it to be the oldest. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at the date, because on every core, I've got dates. So if I look at these, when I look at this core, I've got dates with all these cores. So and I have an item here, sorry. I don't have anything on. So I have dates on all the cores. So I know when it came in. I have an expiration date on it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to automatically allocate that return back against the available dirty core by oldest date, as long as it hasn't expired. In the screen, when you go into when I say this is a core return, you'll notice down here it does allow me to see expired cores. So if by chance I didn't have enough here to automatically allocate, then I could say, give me the expired cores, and I could manually allocate against expired cores. Okay. So did that answer both of those questions?
She said yes, thanks.
Okay, good. I see Patty has her hand raised. Patty Silver.
Patty, go ahead. Okay, I'm not hearing anything from you, Patty. But you are unmuted. I see that you're in on a microphone. You know, if you're trying to talk and it's not working, you might try calling in on the number that was given for the webinar. Sometimes we have a problem with the microphone. But in the meantime, yeah, feel free to type in your question.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. So Dale is asking, on the order, why would you return a core against a different order number? Well, and that is an issue, because you cannot take a dirty core back without being able to allocate it, and that's a problem. So if I'm a first-time customer, I've never bought this item before, and I want to come in and I've got this battery, and I've got a dirty core, and I need the replacement for the battery. I have to allocate it back, or I would have to do it as a core buy, which you could do it as a core buy. So if they've never purchased the battery from you ever, then you do it as a core buy. And that is a good thing with that, is you can say, I'm going to bring this back as a core buy instead. And now put it into your inventory.
So Della, I see Patty's got her hand raised, but she also typed in a question.
Yeah.
You know, Patty, I'll try to unmute you again if you want to try to talk. But and Della, just to make sure that click on the RECD button at the top of the question bank, just to make sure that the questions are sorted chronologically.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, because I noticed they were coming in by the person's name, which made it hard to keep track of which ones are coming in.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so if you have more than, what about if you have one core item for several different products? Okay, so it's kind of like,
hey,
it's
Della,
like a generic.
Della,
yes.
do me a favor and make sure you read the entire question, because the people that are attending can't see the questions.
Oh,
and
okay.
I think Did you answer the question from Patty about what is the difference between what you're doing as compared to just using the core and ICSP?
Yeah. So let's see. Okay. So what is the difference between what you're doing as compared to just using the core and ICSP pricing strain directly driven by the GL number? Using the core and ICSP. So let's go to ICSP. You know, and honestly, this I had not used because we have separate items. Honestly, Patty, we've never used it. We utilized this for the warranty, but I've never used it. Look. Yeah, I think I'm still going to have to have a warranty product. But because this guy is a remanufactured item, if I make it standard, I don't think this allows for a dirty core coming back. I think that's where the difference is. I'd have to double check, but we've never used it because everything we've done is here. The remanufactured item. So I will find out. I'm just making a note of that one. Okay, so let's see. So the next question from Dale. So you can't take the core back until the sale has been invoiced. You can if you do it as a core buy. That would be the only way that you could do it is as a core buy because it works just like a return. The return actually gets posted to unavailable at invoice processing. And so I can't tie things back to an invoice that's not, to an order that's not invoiced. So the return, when I do a core buy, I would have to leave that. So if I say this is a core buy, I'm going to have to leave that invoice number blank and just put it into unavailable as a dirty core return. It does allow me to do that because it's a core buy. So what about, so Kathy asked, what about if you have one core item for several different products? Example, they have an implied core of BC for drum deposits, but we have the same implied core set up on many drum items. Yet, would the proposal still work? Yes. Because what happens is even though you have the same implied core, if that comes back, you still have to apply that to each individual invoice. Now, you know, the good thing is you know, if you've got five different items with that same implied core on one invoice, you could return 5 drums at a time. So, and I don't know if I'm explaining that really well, but you could return 5 drums, 5 empty drums at a time. So it does make it a little bit easier rather than if they, you know, if you had if you had a different drum or a different implied core for each individual item that had a drum with it. But the proposal would still work because it's saying as long as I match between that dirty core and the implied core, I want to to automatically allocate the oldest. So Patty says we use this and it seems to be doing the same thing. Okay. So they're using the ICSP and it's still doing the same thing. We just set up the grace period. I guess you could set up the grace period based on your AO and then utilize that. Patty asks if dirty means defective. I keep the two different. Dirty core is different than defective. It may be the core that's bad. It may just be that the battery is, 50 years old. But I keep the reasons totally separate. So why have a return reason for dirty core? That's totally different than the return reason for defective. Oh, Kelsey's asking if Gary can give us the link to the enhancement request. What I'm going to do, is I'm going to put that document out on the TUG site under SX.e General. So it'll be out there. So let me make a note here. Doc out there. So just a little bit about this document. First off, it was just the basics. So any additional information would be greatly, greatly appreciated. I talked to Catherine Hennard in for, and she is willing to propose this to pitch this as a co-dev for us if we have enough of us that need this. And based upon all the attendees, I think we have enough. But I want to make sure that what we give her, this document that we give her, has everything that we need rather than just parts of it. So I'm going to put this out on the TUG site. Please read through it, dissect it, let me know of any additions, and then before I pitch it to Catherine as a co-dev, I'll put the final doc out there and we can say yay or nay on it. Okay? Dale is asking, if you apply the dirty core to the oldest orders, are they only orders for the customer on the open RM? Yes. I don't know. I don't know that we ever would have a situation, and David, you could probably answer this better than I can, if we ever have a situation where a customer is returning a dirty core that another customer actually bought. I don't know that we would ever do that. I'll find out from David. Oh, Gary, can you unmute David McCrory?
Sorry, Della, I was muted. David, the system is showing that you didn't enter your PIN number when you called in. So what you need to do is on your telephone type in #128#, and that should allow you to be unmuted. You can do that real quick. Okay. Thank you for that, and you should be unmuted now, David. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Hello. Hey, Della, in response to the last question, we've never run into a scenario where you have two independent customers and one is returning a core for the other, because the guy that's returning the core is going to get the credit on the dirty core product, and the other customer is obviously charged for the implied core, and he won't get credit. So we've never had a scenario where different customers were trying to manage cores for each other in that way.
Okay, excellent. And just to let everybody know, David McCrory is the operations manager at Mid-America. So we are aftermarket automotive.
Right. And hey, Della, also a couple of things. I've been trying to take notes as people are asking questions and stuff.
Yeah.
On the issue, I think it was Pam that had on the ICSP record where she tried to do the pricing functionality with the core warranty there.
Right. That was Patty.
I don't think that's going to apply to the dirty core. The grace period under the remanufactured product screen is going to be how long do you want to give, the vendor and the customer to get that dirty core product processed. The pricing tab does not deal with that particular issue. That deals, I think, with the with the remanufactured product itself.
Okay.
So that's why we've always used the grace periods there on that.
Okay.
A couple other things you might want to mention to everybody is if they have core products. We dealt with this where you go into ICSL and you make sure you check your vendor core charge flag under ICSL to make sure that you've got that where you are accepting cores for for those particular vendors.
Right. Oh yes, thank you. And that is a key flag, because if that is not flipped, then the core all goes to suspense.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then also, one other thing that might help people is when you're setting up core products in ICSP, before you change the product to remanufactured, you want to go ahead and have your implied core and dirty core products set up in ICSP first, because as soon as you flip it to remanufactured, it looks automatically for those other two products.
Right.
So go ahead and have those set up first. Set up all three products, and then change your primary product to the remanufactured product.
You'll have to set up your AO options. So out under the products under cores,
right,
there is how the implied core and dirty core are set up, so that it's looking for that. It also sets your default grace period.
Right.
And then you can turn these on where you have, at a customer level, you could have grace periods versus a grace period basically by product. Okay. Cool.
And Della, also something you might throw into your modification that you're asking for, in the ICRCC reporting, where we can look up the cores by customer or however.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the ICRCC report gives you both. It gives you a total for that customer that they can return, but it gives you both the expired and the unexpired cores in one number. So it's not really an accurate report in terms of exactly what the customer is eligible to return, because it does include expired cores in that number.
Okay, so we need the report to be able to eliminate expired. Okay. Okay.
Or at least differentiate between what is expired and what is still available.
Okay.
Something like that,
Yeah, we need both. Okay.
And also, someone asked about a dirty core is not a defective return. A defective return is a new product return. That's a defect. A dirty core is really, in effect, it's a used product that goes against the implied core charge that you initially charged in addition to the new product. But a defect is a new product that's defective. So it's a different type of return.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Thank you, David.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. I see Colleen has her hand raised.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. In your proposal, what stages are you allowing automatic allocation for?
Invoice and paid. It
Okay.
still has to, because we still have to, I mean, the core bank isn't updated until the order is invoiced.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because that was my question, because, I mean, we have some scenarios where, I mean, you can manually allocate something within a pick stage. So I just want to make sure that this wasn't going to allow automatic allocation of something in a pick stage.
Yeah, yeah. Now I want to stick with the you know, it has to exist in the core bank, basically.
Okay. And the guy before previously in ICRCC, I mean, you can adjust all the parameters. I mean, you can, when you run that report, you can adjust it to suppress the print of expired cores. I mean, it's an option in one of the parameters that you have when running those.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Open, closed, expired. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so here's another question. What about KPEW? Could you create a work order that had an implied core to make another item? For example, I want to take 1 drum of product that has an implied core and make 11 pails of the same product. How can we process the work order? Today it doesn't allow us to do this with an implied core. And I think that it used to be an enhancement out there to include, in standard, Catherine, I don't think we can still do that yet. But I'm going to make a note of that. I don't think we can do that yet. I will double check on that one. So what happens, so Sam is asking, what happens when there are different prices between the implied and the dirty core? There's been a price change. And there could be. I mean, you could, I don't know if customers would squawk over this, but you could say it's a $15 deposit on the implied core, but when you return it, you only get $10 back. David, do we do that? David McCrory?
David, you're still unmuted. Must have gone to get a cup of coffee, Della.
Yep, must have. Okay. Sam, as far as I know, I mean, there's nothing happens. Now, if you want to be careful, if there has been, let's say, an implied core comes, when you order from the vendor, is $15. When the invoice comes in, the vendor is charging you $20. The $5 goes to a core variant. And you'll have to change your replacement cost on your core. There is the option, and just to set this, let's see, under cost, under product cost, there's the core cost assignment. What cost do you want to use? You have an option between average, standard, replacement, and last. And what we did is we used replacement across the board. Let's see, Louise is saying, I missed the portion of the webinar. Is there an issue when transmitting POs to RCD through EDI when the PO reflects 2 lines? This is a concern of the purchasing agent. We have to work with our vendors on that. We have one of our vendors that tried to add the core as an add-on. And so we actually worked with with Unilink, who does our mapping for our EDI, and they were able to pull that and fix it. And because the purchase order goes with 2 lines. And so they actually do all the translating, and they move it to where the vendor needs. And then when the vendor sends us the invoice has 1 line and then an add-on for the core, and Unilink does the translation. So we had to do it that way. We didn't have any other way to do it. The vendor wasn't going to move, and we couldn't change the output of SX.e. So we had Unilink do that. So Kelsey's asking, under the proposed change to the core return processing, would a customer still be able to tell us which invoice they want us to apply the core credit to? Oh, and that's a good option. So rather than just automatically doing it, just automatically allocating, so we could say, yes, we want to manually allocate or automatically allocate. So let me make a note here. Because in that way, you could allocate back to a specific invoice, which is exactly what you're doing now. So if you said no to auto-allocate, then what we do is we would come back out here, and you would be able to say, here's the invoice that goes again. Okay. So Kathy, another question. When making an item inactive, you cannot have an implied core attached. It has to be a standard item, then you can inactivate. Can this be changed? If you make an item inactive, a remand item inactive, wouldn't you want it to automatically, it seems to me you'd want it to automatically inactivate the implied and dirty core, or at least the implied core? Yeah, because that would leave the implied core sitting out there. So I will make a note at the end of this and do some testing on how we would want to do that. I can't inactivate the dirty core because you may still have dirty cores that you need to return to the vendor. But if the remand item is inactivated, inactivate the implied core automatically, having to make the remand item a standard item. Okay. And then you would have to go in and manually we'd have to go in and manually inactivate the dirty core. Okay. So let's see. So I have a few things that I'm going to follow up on. I'm going to put this document out on the site. And then do we have any other questions? Oh, I have a question for the group. And just put your vote out on the site when I put the document out there. I think because an hour just kind of going through this, we didn't get a whole lot of time on what SX.e does, but I'd like to have a core roundtable at the next TUG group. So think on that. Think if maybe we can kind of get us all together, and at the next TUG convention, let's do a roundtable breakout. Okay? Okay, so here's another question. The problem with automatically inactivating is if you have the implied core tied to several remand items, it would kill the link to the others. Oh, that's right. It would, wouldn't it? You're right. So we could not do this if using the same implied core. Remand item. So if you're using a generic implied core, this wouldn't work. But if you're using what we did, where we've actually set up, because remember in our AO options, what we said is that cores have that IC after. It's a suffix in the product. So we are not using generic cores. We are using individual cores. Okay. Thank you, Sam. That was a very good point. Or Steve, I should say. Okay. So Sam, what I was trying to ask is, what if the base price of the implied core was changed from $15 to $20? So now you have unexpired cores with your customers at different prices. Would you auto-allocate, pick up the price for each specific customer is charged? Yes. And that's a very good point. The price has to match. So if I've got some implied cores at 15 and some implied cores at 20, and the dirty core that they're returning, the price is going to have to match. Otherwise, you're going to have to manually allocate it. I don't see any way around that because your prices can't be different. Kathy is saying, why couldn't you just inactivate with the implied core still there in the ICSP screen? Okay.
Hey, Della, the way ours is set up, the implied core product has to be a labor product. You cannot change it to an inactive product. It won't let you. I think you'd have to go in, to the core, on the implied core product and change the product type, maybe to a standard product or something before you could inactivate it.
Okay. Okay, yeah, because it's a labor item, so it doesn't understand that. Okay. So on the reman side, we want to be able to just leave it a reman without making it a standard product, just make it inactive without touching anything else. We just want the reman product to be inactive.
Yeah, and you can do that.
Yeah.
You just can't make a labor, you can't make an implied core product that's tied to a remanufactured product inactive.
Okay. So if I go in, oh, because I've got transactions there. Sorry about that. Okay, so because I've got transactions, so I can't on this guy.
You want another example?
Yeah. Let's see.
Do a ACD 35-6YR.
Okay. Oh, this is even syndicated, yeah. Yeah. So we did that without making and left the cores in there. Yep. So it's still a reman item. We just inactivated it. So Kathy, you might check if you're trying to inactivate the reman item without making it a standard product. Check and make sure that you don't have a message where you're getting transactions.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sam, did that? I hope that answered everybody's questions. I've got a few things that I need to take a look at. Were there any other questions? We're quickly approaching our hour.
I'm not seeing any.
I'm not seeing anything new. Okay, folks. Well, I want to thank everyone very much. I hope this was informative. If there are additional questions, if you just add them to the TUG site, David and I will answer them. And then I will put the document out there, and then just let me know if you would be willing to do a roundtable breakout during the next connection. And let me know of any additions or changes. I'm going to clean up the doc a little bit and then before I put it out, so it won't be out until later today. And then don't forget, this has been recorded, so you can go out on the TUG home site, click on the YouTube, that little YouTube icon right there, and see the recording.
And give us about a day to get that uploaded, Della.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. All
well,
righty.
Della, thank you very much for all the time and effort you put into this. We really appreciate it. And with that, we can close it out. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.